Hello everyone, my name is Mr. Elonen. Today we are going to be learning about the differences and similarities between a ratio and a proportion in a mathematical sense. So we'll start with the ratio and then we'll move on to proportion, and I'll give you guys a description of each and then some examples and real-world applicability. So a ratio is a mathematical expression that describes the relationship between two numbers. So let's look at an example of a ratio here. In this example, I want to use something that's applicable to the everyday student. So we're going to look at the difference between males and females in a classroom and apply the definition of a ratio to that. So in this example, we're going to be looking at a classroom that has 30 students total. So we got 30 students, and in this classroom we have 10 boys and we have 20 girls. So as you can see here with some basic arithmetic, 10 plus 20 adds up to this total amount of 30 students. So as we've discussed, a ratio describes the relationship between two numbers. The two numbers here are the 10 boys versus the 20 girls. So if we're to write that in a relationship form, it's going to be 10 to 20. Now this here is standard notation for a ratio. It's going to be two dots, one here, one on the bottom, and that's going to let us know that there are 10 boys for every 20 girls in this classroom. However, with ratios we want to simplify it down to each number's common denominator. So we're going to divide each one by 10, which gives us 1 to 2. Now the value of this ratio being simplified down like this is we know now that for every one boy in the classroom, there's going to be 2 girls. One neat thing about ratios is you can always express a ratio as a fraction. So you're going to put the left-hand number as the numerator on top, and you're going to put the right-hand number here, the 2, as the denominator on the bottom. And ratios are often written as fractions as opposed to left to right with a colon in between. What we can use this fraction to also notify us is that, as you all know, 1 over 2 is half. So now we know that there are half as many boys as there are girls. Now let's move on to a proportion. Looking here, we can see that a proportion is the mathematical expression of the equality of two ratios. Now with proportions, you can show that any quantity A over B is equal to C over D. In this example, we're going to try and find how much salt water or how much salt is going to be necessary for our saltwater tank. So say your guidebook says that for every 50 gallons of water in your aquarium, you need 1 cup of sea salt. Now with this proportion, the question would be, if we had a 150 gallon tank, how many cups of sea salt would we need to fit the requirement? Well, since the proportions are equal, or rather the ratios are equal, what that tells us is every number that A is multiplied by, C also is multiplied by that number to keep the proportion equal. And the same with B and D. So we're trying to figure out what this question mark is, how much salt we need. So we can see that 50 gallons turned into 150. So what was it multiplied by to get to 150? Well, we figure that out by dividing 150 by 50, and we get 3. Therefore, seeing as how we multiplied the bottom by 3, that means we must also multiply the top by 3. So if you multiply 1 times 3, you get 3 cups of salt. That's how much you need.